Hi, welcome to Mr. P's ceramics class. Today I'm going to show you plates. I'm going to show you a little bit more advanced way of making a plate, and then I'm going to show you just a very simple way of making a plate if your throwing skills aren't that good, and how you can even change that simple plate into a platter. I've wired off a section of clay. Just depending on how much clay you wire off will determine the size of plate you get. We want a circular plate, and this is a square piece of clay, so I certainly obviously want to just hammer down the corners of the clay, and I'm just going to kind of spin it around on the bat a little bit. And I'm going to set it on the bat, and I'm going to kind of like hit it down, kind of just like a pancake, because that's essentially what you're making, is really a large pancake. So I'm pressing it down with my hands and making kind of like a mound of clay there. And I can't get the outside edge perfectly centered. So I'm going to take my needle tool and I'm going to trim that outside corner. So I lock my wrist and I cut down with the needle tool all the way. Okay? And I remove that clay, and I can reuse that piece of clay by starting in the center and spiraling it around. Okay? And I tap it back down. Okay? And now my outside edge is perfectly centered. And now essentially this is just like throwing a cylinder, except it's a very, very shallow cylinder. So I'm going to take my thumbs, I'm going to make my opening. If you're not sure how far you're going down, stab it with a needle tool, lift up. Mine's still fairly thick, so I can push down a little bit more. It's about 1 inch. You can go down to about 1/2 inch. Don't forget you're going to trim the bottom of it. And now I'm right-handed. I'm going to use my left hand in the center. I'm going to put my right hand over, and I'm going to pull that opening, that clay, right toward me at 6 o'clock. And I'm widening the well, so to speak, of the clay. Once I get to the outside edge, I ease up my pressure, and you can check the thickness as you go along, because sometimes you might ease up your pressure, sometimes you might push down. So check the thickness of the bottom of the plate to make sure it's relatively even throughout. And again, now, just like throwing a cylinder, I'm going to center the lip, even the outside. I can take a carving tool. I usually like trim that outside edge down. And if I wanted to, I could just flare this out just a little bit and I have a nice kind of bowl shape. But to get a plate, I'm centering the lip. Once I've stretched out the clay, I go from the outside and I go back to the inside and I use a little bit of compression. And I go back to the outside, and then from the outside I go back to the center. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I was stretching out the clay, and those fibers are pulling this way. So by going from the outside back to the center, it recondenses the clay particles. And so now, just like drawing up a cylinder, I compress and lift up, center the lip. And then I'm going to do a second pull. I compress and I ease up my pressure. I'm not going fast on the wheel speed. If I do, the centrifugal action is going to really push the walls of this bowl plate outwards, and I don't want that. I'm going to do even a third pull. So again, I kind of slow down the speed even a little bit more, and I'm drawing this up. And I get to the top, center that lip. And now I'm going to clean out the water from the inside, get that just the way I like, because I'm not going to really want to touch the inside once I start pushing on the outside lip, pushing that downwards. Okay, and so what I do is I'm putting, just like a bowl, in the video you saw me demonstrate a bowl, it's really no different. My outside hand is there to support, and I use my left hand and I start pushing out. Now, along the way, I'm going to just show you some aesthetic choices to make. If I want, I could stop right there. That's kind of like a nice bowl, a large salad bowl, soup bowl. Don't forget clay shrinks, so I want to consider that in making forms. Usually a dinner plate is about 12 inches. I'm going to now start, but I'm going to start pushing this out more even to get that plate shape. And again, my right hand is really supporting the clay. I kind of like that shape also. Even again, a wider kind of bowl dish as a serving kind of form is nice. And I just now keep slowly to really get a true plate. I really just push my left hand against that right hand. And I start pressing down the clay more and more. Okay? I like to use a rib, and I use the convex part of it, and I can use my left hand to support it, the lip, and I can now really start pushing down even further. And to the degree that I push down, I do want to be careful, especially right at this corner edge. If I push down too hard, it'll flatten out like a pancake. And if it's ever too soft for you, wait till it gets a little leather hard, or not leather hard, but a little bit stiffening up, and then I can really push this down more and more. But for the demo, I'm just going to finish it all in one shot. So see again, now I'm really using that rib, using slightly more pressure toward the inside to help make it really concave on the entire inside. And at this point, again, all I can really emphasize, I keep repeating this, but it's really kind of aesthetic choices. How far do you want to push this plate down, okay? I could even bring this down a little bit further, which I will, one more time. And I'm going to really flatten this down. I'm going to bring that right where the lip edge meets the interior of the plate. I'm going to flatten that out with my rib so I get a really nice concave shape. Okay? Now, the one problem with this is I've been pushing out with my hand. The outside of the plate, the outside edge gets a little off center. To fix that, I'm going to take my needle tool, and as if it's dropping out of the sky, I come in about 1 centimeter from the outside edge, lock my wrist, and you can't move your hand back and forth, and I just hold steady. Once I make contact with that needle tool, I just cut all the way through until gravity does its work, that outside edge falls off. And now I have a perfectly round edge. And I can now center that, take a little bit of that crud off, center the lip. And that's now really kind of like a perfect shape. And I wire this off, and this can eventually be trimmed on the Giffen grip. Wire that down. And there's a nice plate. Okay? So that's a little bit more complex in terms of shaping. I'm going to show you a really simple plate. Okay, on the simple plate, I've attached the bat. Same thing has to occur. I'm going to use the needle tool on the outside edge just to cut through that to make sure that the outside is perfectly circular. I can always, again, use that extra clay, start from the center, spiral it out, cut that down. And now in centering, I'm just pushing down, and I almost use like a karate chop. I just come straight down with my right hand, and I'm really flattening out the clay. Now I'm going to make the reason why I say karate chop, because your palm kind of bends down like that kind of convex form. So if I start from the middle and kind of move my way out, it naturally kind of dips down, okay? And that really essentially shapes the plate. Again, I can go from the inside out with my sponge, from the outside back to the center. I can take my carving tool and I'm going to trim that outside edge just a little bit. And I'm going to even kind of round out the edge of the plate. And I'm going to undercut that with my carving tool. I can then use the rib like I did in the other plate. Use the convex part. Start from the middle and move out. Really clean that down. Now I'm going to turn this into a platter, which is one final technique and trick I can show you how to do that. But this is, once this gets trimmed down, this really is going to be a plate form as well. So as a platter, I'm going to make a strong finger indentation and create a strong spiral form. And we're going to go over to the slab roller and I'm going to show you how to make a platter. So in throwing this plate, I made this spiral design, but as you can see, once I wire it off and trim it, it will be a plate shape, similar to the one I threw prior. It definitely has a little bit of a undercutted lip, a lip there that flares out, but trimming it down, both will end up being a plate. So I'm going to take this one that I threw and put the strong spiral in, and while it's still soft on the wheel, I'm going to wire it off. And on this slab roller, it's a canvas top, so I take that piece of clay and I'm going to stretch this out gently, and then on the other side, keep flipping it back and forth. Gently flipping it back and forth. And again, the key is doing this while it's soft. And I'll do this one more time. And by creating that spiral, what I have is this really beautiful shape that starts curling out. And if I start, once it gets leather hard, if I curl up the edges, this was another platter that I had finished. You can see where I threw it on the wheel, stretched it out, and then I just added handles, and it makes a great serving tray. And that's something that you can do with making a platter, is let that stiffen up, curl up the edges. I could put feet on it if I wanted to, or a foot ring, put the handles, and I have a nice platter. Thanks so much.